Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Pullen. I'm the President and CEO of Swix Sport USA. I want to welcome everyone to the third session of 4 in the Swix Waxing and Tuning series. Tonight is going to be super exciting. We're going to focus on World Cup waxing. We're going to focus on liquid application, solid application, and powder applications. And today, again, we will have our Director of Alpine Racing Service, Graham Lonetto, running the show. Graham has a tremendous amount of experience, 25 years of World Cup tuning experience. He owned his own shop, and again, he's working for Swix as our director. So it is my pleasure to welcome Graham Lonetto, and take it away, Graham.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. All right, welcome everyone. Tonight's going to be the third series of the clinics that we'll be doing, and we're going to be focusing on waxing details and procedures. So before I get started, I just want to mention that all these videos are going to be posted on the Ski Racing Media website along with the Swix YouTube site. So if you want to see anything, you can always go back and check it out. Details will be posted on the chat room. So we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight we're going to do a little bit of review. Some of the information is some stuff I covered in the first clinic, but we'll go over this just to make sure everybody's up to speed if you didn't join us on Monday. And we'll kick it off with the rules. So USSA has banned the use of fluoros for this season and seasons coming. And also the FIS has a ban in place as well, although it had been suspended for this season. So going into next year, any racing that you do, USSA or FIS races, are going to be all fluoro free. So Swix was in an excellent position to adapt to this new non-fluoro environment. So with over 11 years of developing safer fluoro options and searching for fluoro replacements, along with the EPA audit regarding fluoro compliance, Swix was in an excellent position to adapt quickly to the new rules. So we're really proud to deliver a fluoro-free race wax system. So people ask me this all the time. Does using a non-fluoro race wax mean I'm going to take a step back in performance? And the simple answer is no. So I'm in touch with wax technicians from around the world in every discipline of the sport. Nordic, Alpine, freestyle, snowboard, and the reviews that we're getting on the new system are really exciting. So for instance, this is some testing data from Val Gardena that I talked about on Series 1. And this is from our test team over in Europe, and the new high-speed non-fluoro wax was outperforming the old HF waxes. So that's really exciting for us, and we're seeing this consistently in testing. I can't speak for other fluoro-free wax systems, but I can tell you based on our extensive testing, the stuff is really working well. Okay, so now it's time to select a new fluoro-free race wax system. And we'll go right into Pro. So updated for 2021, the Pro non-fluoro system replaces the old fluorinated Serenova system. So one ingredient didn't replace the fluoros, rather it's a combination of hybrid ingredients. So the main additive is called metal colloid, and it's a non-toxic, biodegradable nanometal. So these raw ingredients were blended into specific temperature, humidity, snow crystal ranges into a hybrid, and these hybrids lower the coefficient of friction, increasing glide. Excuse me. So these are new proprietary materials that were created by independent labs and by Swix. And so in conjunction with multiple research laboratories exclusive to Swix, you're thinking about 8 new substances that are similar to qualities to fluoros. So we're talking about moving water, which is what fluoro did. So we're going to do that in just a different manner with these hybrid combinations. So the bottom line is moving that water and creating a fast layer that the ski can glide on. It's 100% biodegradable, 100% non-toxic, and eco-friendly. So 3 levels of performance, 100% fluoro-free. Remember, when you're selecting race wax, Swix wax, you're going to want to look for this fluoro-free symbol to know that it's fluoro-free. And as I mentioned, biodegradable, non-toxic, and eco-friendly. Look for the leaf. Okay, this is a little bit more talk about the metal colloids. So, as I mentioned, every brand will have a specific proprietary replacement for fluoro. Could be a different material. We use the metal colloids. And as I mentioned, the real technology is in the combination of these hybrids. And also, these hybrids are consistently outperforming the fluoro. So we had over 800 individual field tests, and we used the old fluoros as the minimum baseline standard of performance. So we're meeting or exceeding the standard of the HF waxes with the new non-fluoro system. So being eco-friendly just isn't enough. It has to be fast. So Swix has 2 separate test teams that follow the World Cup on the Nordic and Alpine side around the world. Pretty cool. And with all the different testing on the Nordic side and the Alpine side with this dedicated staff, we can really know that we're setting a new standard of speed with this non-fluoro system. So there's 3 different levels of performance. We have performance speed, speed at maximum value, high speed, the second level of speed, and top speed when every 1/10 of a second counts. So out with the old and in with the new. So on the left is the old Ceranova system with the fluoros, and on the right is Pro. And you can see the systems are very similar in terms of it being a system that builds on speed. The main difference is on the Pro side, we're going to be dropping the 4 category hardness out of that system. So instead of 6 bars, it's 5 bars. And we open the ranges of the waxes a little bit so they cover more range than the standard Ceranova. So we'll do a level by level breakdown here. And we'll kick it off with performance speed. So this is going to replace the standard hydrocarbon waxes. So PS series waxes are great training and competition on a budget. It's a high quality hydrocarbon wax with good glide properties. 5 different snow conditions are available, and it's a very cost-effective, great everyday training wax. And then we have Swix HS, or high speed, and that's going to be replacing the LF, or low fluoro. So the HS waxes have a greater durability and performance. Again, it's 5 different snow conditions available, and it's a really great value to performance ratio. And these waxes are also offered in a solid or a liquid. The thing to remember too is it's not like a straight replacement for LF. In fact, the new HS series is probably a little closer to the old HF. It's something to consider. And that brings us to top speed, or TS black. And that's going to replace the old HF BW. So these waxes all the way across the category are all going to be black. It has a molybdenum additive. So this is my go-to. This is what I use the most. And why I like it is because it's for old snow, transformed snow, aggressive conditions. I use this most of the time. So it's a high-performance wax designed for extremely wet and dirty snow. And TS Black can also be used when dry friction is available, so really aggressive snow that you're having a hard time getting the ski to break or slide. So the way it works is the molecules stack up like a deck of cards, and they slide off one another. And that allows the ski to start rolling in those aggressive conditions, and it also works as a dirt repellent. New for next season is going to be the TSPs, or powders. And these are going to be replacing the old HF waxes. So we're going to have a full series of this wax available. It's a powder application, maximum performance. I use this category of wax a lot when it's new fallen snow, when I know it's snowing on the track, as opposed to the TSB, which is going to be for those transformed conditions, injected snow, salted conditions, or really aggressive snow. Also, this is offered in a powder and liquid form, and the liquid waxes have really been killing it. The reason why we went away from the standard paraffin here and we moved to a powder is simply because it was working better. So these waxes are going to be a really big part of our line, and really fast. All right, so top speed and high speed liquids. So these are going to be a liquid spray-on, very simple to use, and they're really cost effective. You're going to get about 15 or 20 applications out of each one of these bottles, maybe even more. So really easy to use. You can use it as a standalone base layer, or you can use it as a top coat for racing second runs if the conditions have changed. And we'll get into those details as we move along. Okay, Marathon solid and powder. These waxes have been in our line in the past. So they were fluorinated versions in the past. Marathon white will now come in a solid block or a powder version. Marathon white is hard and extra durable glide wax developed especially for new clean snow. Marathon waxes can be used as a race wax alone or as a base for top coats. A Marathon black is a hard and extra durable wax, and it was developed especially for those wet and dirty contaminated conditions. That's like the B, the moly additive that we were talking about. So the additive reduces friction against dirt particles in warmer conditions, but also runs well in colder, aggressive snow crystals, as we mentioned before. Marathon waxes can be used as a race wax alone or as a base top coat. So in the old system, Ceranova, we had the 4-category hardness. And as I mentioned, in Pro, we dropped that from the line in general, and this is where it falls. We call it polar. So the new polar non-fluorinated wax replaces the old CH4, and we decided to simplify the colder waxes and just make it a powder and a paraffin version here. So PSP is a special powder wax to add to other waxes to increase the durability and protect the base from ice abrasion. So it's for especially abrasive snow, such as new man-made snow, really cold conditions. It works very well. And a pro tip is, while the wax is still in the liquid form, or at least still warm, you could sprinkle this PSP right over the top of that wax. You can use a generous amount, and then you can iron it right in. So it's going to increase the hardness of the wax and the durability, especially in those really aggressive icy conditions that can be difficult on the bases. Swix bio waxes. So these waxes are really interesting. They're a performance biodegradable wax. Like as I mentioned before, all of our waxes are biodegradable in the system. But this one is made from recycled petroleum products. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more eco-friendly, this is going to be a good choice for your training skis. Offered in 3 different temperature ranges, so it's very simple to use and a great choice for training. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the base prep waxes. I get a lot of questions about how you use these waxes specifically. So BP99, it's a soft wax with a low melting point. It's recommended as the first wax on new skis to make the base accustomed to hot irons. So BP99 is also recommended for skis in the hot box. It's really a pretty soft wax, so you can run really lower temperatures in the thermal bag or hot box without worrying about damaging the ski with heat. BP88 is for normal winter conditions, and it's an all-around base prep wax for skis or snowboards or whatever you have, and it's used on new skis as a travel wax often. And BP77 is a harder base prep for new downhill and GS skis and slalom skis and can be used for all conditions. It's also a great training wax for glaciers. All right, so we'll just talk a little bit about base material here. We'll change gears and get into a little bit more wax tuning. So I just wanted to talk about base materials specifically in terms of how you set your skis up. So you have your base material and your structure. And when you have your skis, you can ask your rep what kind of base material they have. If you have a pair of speed skis with a cold structure, a cold base material, it's going to be a little harder. Base materials for warmer conditions might be a little bit softer. But the important thing to know is understand what you have with your skis. For instance, you don't want to put a cold structure on a warm base. So it's good to ask your rep about your equipment, understand how the skis are built, and then select the right grind or structure for that ski. And then also when you talk about base structures, you can get pretty specific for tech or for speed skis. So there's going to be a slightly different angle. Usually for GS or slalom, the skis are going to be a little tighter grind, and it'll come across the ski a little bit more, and that's going to help the ski turn easier. A lot of times for speed skis where there's a lot more speed involved, the structure gets a little bit longer, and you can get a lot more specific with structures and base materials and building a quiver of skis that you can use logically as you develop as a ski racer. I have this one here just to kind of show you how we talk about structures in general. So the whole idea with structures is it's about moving water underfoot. So in really warm, wet conditions, you're going to want a structure that is able to move water. In really cold, dry conditions, you want a structure that's going to create a film that the ski can ride on. So you can see here on the left, there's a lot of structure on this grind here. So this is going to be a structure for really warm, wet conditions. And as I move to this finer, longer structure, this is going to be more for really cold conditions. So I try to break it down and make it something really simple that people can follow, and we can share this information with you. But I have specific temperature ratings from our Swix system that correlate to specific structures. I would say for GS and slalom, keep it pretty simple. You want something that you can see but you don't feel. It's not overly aggressive. And then when you get into speed skis, you could really dial it in for specific temperature range. And then when you show up for a race, you could say, oh, today it's between 28 and 18 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm using my 7 structure. It can be that simple. And we're going to go a little bit more into details with this stuff tomorrow as we talk about ski setup and tracking your parameters on your skis so you can build a understanding of how you're going to use your skis logically and what works best for you. Okay, so I wanted to talk about selecting the wax of the day. So you can go crazy with this. Like if you're really getting deep into the waxing selection, you can really take it pretty far. I wanted to keep it, generally speaking, pretty simple, follow our system, and make it easy for everybody to logically select their wax for the day. So there's a few considerations that we have here. We're going to talk about air temp. We're going to talk about snow crystals. We're going to talk about new snow versus old snow, and then the performance level. So Swix recommends looking at ambient air temperature, and that's the average temperature during the race, at the start of the race or second round, whatever it might be. So why? The reason's really simple. This is a parameter that all categories of skiers can relate to in most conditions, and it gives us the best correlation between the product and performance. Let's face it, it's really hard to go up on the hill and get a temperature of the snow when you're the night before waxing for the race. So we always recommend look at the race time, look at the hourly forecast for the temperature, and go off that ambient air temp. Okay, so let's see here. Look at ambient air temperature for the race start time, wax for the conditions specific for the start, and then you're going to want to support second run with changes in conditions with top coats. So let's say I waxed for my first run and I ended up using TSB 7. And then the second run, it got a lot warmer. My second run, I can simply support the change in that temperature for second run by using one of the liquid waxes that's a little bit warmer. So you can make adjustments due to changes in the weather simply by supporting the waxing with the liquids. Okay. In extreme conditions, wax colder for aggressive snow. This is the snow crystal. So it's good to have durability in your wax selection, and a colder wax does just that. If you talk to most technicians on the World Cup or people that have been doing wax selection for a long time, most people are always going to want to miss it cold. They like to have a harder wax. So in general, it's best to miss it trending to the cold side. You want wax hardness to be as hard or harder than the snow crystal that you're waxing for. So sharp snow crystals that can dig into the base or penetrate the wax paraffin will slow the ski. So when aggressive snow crystals are present, harden your wax call. If the temperature range indicates a 7 hardness, but as really aggressive snow crystals are present, you can wax to 6 with confidence. Keep notes on your wax selections. The best wax technicians will keep notes. They'll understand what worked, what didn't work, and they'll build understanding or a book that helps them kind of guide their wax selection in the future. Sorry, here my screen died on me. All right, select the wax level that reflects your performance. So select your performance level. And our wax system helps you do that. It's really simple. So ask yourself, am I speed on a budget? Am I at HS level, best performance to performance to expense ratio? Or am I at TS, where every 1/10 of a second counts? Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself when you're addressing our system. What's your budget? How fast do you want to go? For some people, every 1/10 of a second, every dollar is worth it. For some people, maybe not. So select the wax that works best for you. New snow versus old snow. And we talked a little bit about this with the Marathon's a great example, because Marathon is essentially 2 different products that are very similar. We talk about this wax as being kind of a really simple race wax, a no-brainer. You just pick new snow or old snow. The big difference between these 2 waxes, as we talked about, one has the molybdenum additive and one doesn't. So one's going to work better for new snow and one's going to work better for old snow. So does the track have new fallen snow on it? Is it snowing out? Do you know it's new snow at the start? You're going to use the white. Is it old snow, man-made snow, transformed snow, injected snow? The black's going to be a great choice. So just look at your conditions and then select whether you're going to use the moly, old snow, or white for new snow. As I mentioned before, using the liquids are going to help you make on-piste wax adjustments between runs if you need to. Or if you waxed the night before and you show up for first run and the temperature's changed a lot, it's really nice to have these in your back pocket. These waxes have been testing really fast, and you can use it as a top coat adjustment and have the best performing skis for that moment when you're at the hill. All right, so we'll get into the waxing procedures now. But before we start the wax, we're just going to talk about PPE really quickly. Wear the proper safety equipment in the ski room. It's going to be hard for me to put the mask on, all my gear, and talk to you and work in this format. So I'm going to just wear a pretty simple mask as I do my waxing. But make sure you have the proper PPE. And just really quickly, we'll go over these steps here. So work in a properly ventilated workspace. Wear proper respiratory protection. Wear a hat, wear gloves, wear safety glasses or goggles. Wear dedicated workspace clothing. Wear dedicated footwear in the workspace. Use a HEPA filter vacuum in the workspace. It really keeps the dust particles from flying around the workspace. It's a nice choice. Dispose of any loose wax shavings or particulates in the garbage bag. Make sure it goes to the local landfill. And wash your hands and face in exposed areas after working. Workspace do nots. Never work around unprotected people in the workspace. Never eat in the workspace. Never smoke in the workspace, and never use an iron over 180C or 356F. These 2 things are kind of more specific for floral waxing, but it's a good rule of thumb. And then also, make sure you have proper ventilation in the workspace. You want to make sure that you have cross flow of air, and if you have to open a door or a window, put a fan in the ski room, make sure that there's just good air movement. All right, so before waxing, more things to consider. Buy a quality digital iron. That's my recommendation. Of course, all of our irons work really well. They're good choices. But if you spend a little extra money and you get into the higher categories here of digital irons, they're going to really work a lot better, especially with the harder waxes. These irons here, the T72 or T71, are going to have a really precise thermostat, so you don't get very much fluctuation in temperature. And also, there's a lot more heating element in the iron itself. Thicker base plate, more heating elements. So there's less cold spots in the iron. So when you're applying those hard to apply cold waxes, it really makes it very easy. Okay, prepping your iron. So just like your skis, your iron should be prepped before use. So find a flat surface, and we're going to sand the iron flat. So I use a progression. I'll go through 220 grit, 300 grit, and then maybe take it to 400 grit sandpaper. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to tape down the sandpaper to the table or flat surface, whatever you can find, and then we're going to work that iron over that sandpaper and flatten it. So here at my table, I set up a little bit of 220 sandpaper, and I have my iron here that we're going to prep. So what I'll do is just take that iron and put it right down on the paper, and I'm just going to gently move it back and forth. Now what this is going to do is it's going to flatten my iron, and you'll be surprised at how cupped some of them can be. But just like a ski, if the ski's cupped or concave or convex, it's not going to glide as well as it possibly could. So as we work this iron flat, we're going to be removing any burrs or anything that may have been on from prior use. But also, when I roll it up, you can see, hopefully you can see this on there, but you can see it's hitting on the edges. So I've got some work to do. I'm going to work through this 200 grit sandpaper here and just keep working until I can get this thing completely flat and smooth. So once I get this flat and smooth with the 220, I'll just knock the edges too to make sure it's nice and clean. And then I'll replace that sandpaper. I'll move to 300, and then I might clean it up with some Scotch-Brite afterwards. I want to make sure I sand it flat edge to edge and it's nice and clean. So once you do that, you're going to have an iron that's going to glide really nice and it's going to perform well and help you apply those waxes easily. Protect your investment. So we have a lot of different ways that you can protect your iron. And just by throwing your iron, especially if you buy one of those nicer digital irons that I was just talking about, into your wax box without any protection, you're going to be sanding your iron a lot to clean it up, or you're going to be scratching your bases. So think about a simple cover for the iron is a really nice way to protect it. What I really like about these too is even if my iron's hot, I can put it away pretty quick and wrap it up and maybe put it in my box before it's cooled down completely. Works pretty well like that. The wax boxes are a good investment too, but one of our new additions to our line in the last couple of years is this little lunch bag. And these work great, especially the combination of the iron cover, and then you can just put it inside the lunch bag. It's padded, protects it. It's a nice little kit. So I actually use one of these for my wax kit, and I'll use one for my edge kit. Keep everything separate, and I'll put it in a duffel bag. It travels really easy, and I fly with it like that too. It's been pretty good. Okay, pro tip for ironing: check the temps and don't overheat the skis. So on all of our waxes, you're gonna simply check the packaging, and it's gonna give you the temperature rating right there on the wax for whatever wax you choose for the day. So that's going to do a couple things. It's going to prevent you from damaging the wax. You won't overheat it or underheat it. And also you won't overheat your base or damage your base by using the wrong temperature with the wax. That isn't correct. So if I'm using a really hard wax and I'm not running a high enough temperature, I'm going to really have to slowly move the iron and expose the base material to a lot of heat. So just make sure you check that. It's going to make your waxing a lot easier. You'll hear me talk about this over and over. There's two ways that you're going to damage your skis, really. One of them is going to be by overheating the base, and most everybody does this. The other one's going to be by, we talked about this at the edge clinic last week, about putting a file on the base edge and adding too much base bevel. So be careful with the heat when you're ironing. Okay, so I just want to talk about the temperature settings for on the new system because they're a little different than they have been in the past. So what we have for the PS category is you're going to have 150, 145, 140, 130, 120, pretty similar to the old Ceranova CH system. The HS and TS waxes are a little harder in general. So you're going to, I have the wrong images up here for these, but anyways, the HS waxes are going to be, for the 5 will be 150, 6 is going to be 145, 7 will be 140, 8 is 130, and 10 is 120. And then the TSB, once again, I have a little typo here, but it's going to be, for 5, it's going to be 160, 155 for 6, 150 for 7, 150 for 8, and 165 for 10. So that's a question, right? Like a lot of people ask, why is the 10 so high? Because it's a soft wax. This is a cool wax here, and I use it a lot for the springtime when it's treated snow. So it's a warm wax that has the ability to move a lot of water, TSB 10. But we've hardened that wax a little bit, and it works great for alpine. Why? Because in those warm conditions, when they're going to salt the course is actually harder. The snow is hardened by the salting. So we need some more durability in that wax. Also, that wax, the treatment of the snow is going to require that moly dirt repellent. So we have dirt repellency, we have hardness to deal with the treated snow, and so that's a great choice for spring series when it's treated conditions. Once again, the powders here, where we have check your temperature rating across the board. Marathon, these waxes are a little harder, so they're going to be higher temperatures. Some people don't like to work with the harder waxes like this because they're for hardness category. Some people just aren't comfortable ironing those in. But the cool thing is the powders are very easy to work with. So you can put this powder on, and we're going to go into details with this powder tomorrow. But the powder can be applied over the top of the ski and ironed in with ease if you're not comfortable using the standard paraffin. Okay, we'll go back to the ironing techniques really quick, and then we'll get into it. So, as mentioned earlier, spend the money on a good digital iron. It will really make your waxing experience a lot better. Use the iron lengthwise. You know, a lot of people make the mistake of turning the iron. So, I like to use the iron the full length of the ski, and the reason for that is if I turn it sideways, I just reduce the heating element by about 50%. So the iron's going to have less ability to get that wax in quickly here, right? And also the other thing is I'll really scratch up the base here. Also, you can see this iron's dimpled, so that's going to help me spread the wax. And if I turn it sideways, it's just not going to work right. This iron's designed to be used lengthwise. When we're ironing, we want to make sure that we make 2 full-length passes, and we should be able to get the wax into the ski with 2 full-length passes, no more. And what I'm going to be doing when I'm working with this iron is I'll be pushing down with moderate pressure, and I'm also using the iron which looks like it's backwards. This is actually the front of a Swix iron, the Y. It's got a beveled front edge here. So this beveled edge is going to help the iron glide over that wax as it distributes with the dimples, and the weight of this iron helps it get right into the ski with ease. So those are a couple things to consider. Don't iron with this technique. When you start sliding back and forth like this, you're really just spreading the wax all over the top of the ski, and you're not really letting it drop down and get into the ski. So when we drip the wax on, we're going to distribute with 1 full-length pass. On the second pass, we're going to have the wax drop into the ski. I'm going to be able to see the structure stand proud, and then I know I have penetration of that wax into the ski. 2 passes. The really important thing is not to overheat the ski. I keep talking about that. What you want is a moderate speed, and you want that wet trail behind the iron to stay about the same size as the iron itself. If I really slow down and I start putting more heat into the ski, that wet trail is going to get longer and longer. And the question is, Why? It's because the heat's dropping down through the core of the ski. You're going to damage the base material, and ultimately you're going to damage the base of the ski as well. All right, so what happens when you overheat the ski? So heat builds through all those different layers. The ski is pretty complicated. There's layers of Titanal, there's carbon, there's all different types of wood. Everything is held together by resin, epoxies. So when you heat up these materials and they cool down, they expand and contract at different rates, and you're constantly breaking down the core of the ski. But if you just make those 2 full-length passes and you really reduce the heat going into the ski is going to stay stable and it won't become concave or convex. So that's really important. Also, as I mentioned, when you put the heat to this base material, it's called a sintered base material. It's smashed together. It's really hard. And there's like nooks and crannies in there where the wax can fit. But if you move really slow and you overheat that material, it's going to singe and close up. And then the ski won't take the wax as well. It'll become hairy and slow as well. So I've watched some people really overheat their skis, and at the end of the season, the skis end up being really concave and convex. I saw that a lot at my store. I stone ground a lot of skis. It's a pretty common mistake, but it's a really easy one to avoid. Ways to reduce the heat. We talked about this in the first clinic. A roller waxer works really well. You can pick the wax of the day, put it in the tray. You can make a couple of passes over the top with a clean ski, and then you make 1 or 2 passes with your iron. The wax is right into the ski. The ski's protected with a layer of wax. It works really well. You'll save a little bit of money too because you won't use as much product. Okay, so before you wax, clean the base material with a non-fluoro base cleaner. So we'll prep the ski and get it ready for waxing here. All right, so hopefully you can hear me okay. So what we're going to do is, I like to take a scraper really quick and just scrape down the ski from the tip to the tail. And we have a nice sharp clean scraper that's burr free. And I'll just make my way down the ski and just clean that residual wax from training off the ski. Okay, and now I can use a base cleaner. And what I want to say before is just make sure that it's fluoro free. And our waxes will say it right on there. So I can use this Glide Wax cleaner and a little bit of Fiberline. And this is going to do a nice job of cleaning the top palette of the ski and making room for my wax of the day, whatever I choose to use. And just take that Fiberline and rip it. Okay, we'll apply this cleaner. I don't go too crazy with it. A bottle like this should last you a long time. Just wipe down the ski. And this will help the ski take wax, believe it or not, over time. The Glide Wax cleaner is not the old abrasive base cleaner or the citrus solvent. Now, this is a different product, but the Glide Wax cleaner works pretty well. So what we're going to do is just let that sit for about 10 minutes until it's completely dry. And then we could brush it out with a white nylon and clean it with Fiberline, and we're going to be ready to wax. So I'm just going to use this other ski just to keep us moving along. Okay, I'm going to take my nylon brush. After that base cleaner is dried, just brush it out with a white or a blue nylon, and then we'll be ready to do some waxing here. Okay, quick little trick, definitely saves some time, especially if you're working with the warm waxes. The warmer waxes seem to slide down the sidewalls and really make a mess of the ski. But I just take a little bit of masking tape here, and it's going to save some time on cleanup after we wax. So I'll just cover the bindings. I'll cover the vices too. So I like to keep my vices clean. I don't like to have to dig all the wax off of them at the end of the day. I would say you can reuse that wax too. So like the next ski that comes up, I could just pop that off and leave it right there. And when I'm ready to wax again, I can swap it out. Pretty simple. You can save a little bit of wax or tape. And I'm just gonna cover the vise real quick. Okay, so we're going to pick our wax of the day. So I'll work with something that has moderate hardness. Let's see, we'll pick PS7 here. So check out the packaging. It says 140 degrees Celsius. So I can take that out of its package and come over to my digital iron. And I can just dial it right down to 140. In a minute or two, it'll go right to 140 and it will stay there. This iron's a really thick base plate, so it holds its temperature pretty well. It takes a little while longer for it to cool down. But I'll just give that a second. And then I'm going to take the wax. I'm going to start at the tail, work my way to the tip and back. I want to use a decent amount of wax. Don't be afraid to use the wax. It's going to help protect the base. With the softer waxes, I know a lot of people that like to rub it on, just so there's some sort of protection on the base so the iron doesn't burn it. But the harder waxes, obviously, that can be kind of difficult to do. All right, so I'll drip it on. All right, so I have a decent amount of wax on there. And then, once again, I'm going to be using it with that beveled leading edge. Looks like I'm at 140. I'm going to make this first pass with moderate pressure. I'm not going to go too slow. I want that wax trail to follow the iron itself. So this first pass is going to be distributing the wax. The second pass is going to be getting that wax to drop down into the structure of the ski. So right now you can still see the drips from where I applied the wax. On this next pass, I don't want to see that. I just want to see the structure stand proud, and then I know the wax is into the base. All right, so 2 nice easy passes, controlled. You know, if you come in close here, you can see that grind standing tall. I can see the structure, and I can't see those drips. Remember, we're not using it sideways. We're not doing one of these. That's how I wax skis the first time I did it when I was a kid. You know, like you want to be controlled with your movements. Don't overheat the ski. All right, so we're going to let the skis cool down here. And basically, cool, how long does it take? Basically, I just want it to be the room temperature. So I don't want to feel any heat in the ski when I'm done. The other thing, because I moved quickly and I kept the 2 passes, I didn't feel any heat come through to the top sheet. So this ski's going to cool a lot faster than if I went slowly and really built a lot of heat into the ski. But while the ski is still fairly warm, I'm going to take my scraper or a groove scraper and just kind of clean off any of the excess wax off the sidewalls or off the edges. And then I can set the ski aside to cool off, and I can wax my other ski. it's a good practice to get into. Sometimes you don't clean off the sidewalls. Even when you go out and ski, that might not come off. You get into the ski room to do your edge touch-up after a day of skiing, and you run your diamond stones on the edge. And if your diamond stone catches some of that wax that's still on the sidewall, it'll really gum up and make a mess of your sidewalls. So it's just a good habit to get into. Make sure they're nice and clean. All right, so we're going to let that wax cool off. And then we want to scrape off the excess wax. So you want to make sure that you're using a sharp plastic scraper. Don't use metal scrapers for scraping the wax. I like to use this little scraper sharpener to make sure I have a nice sharp scraper. It's a great little tool. There's a lot of different ways that you can sharpen your scraper. You could use a file. We have a file and a guide combination. It's very simple. We have this power scraper sharpener. The main thing when you're done with any sort of scraper sharpening, you want to make sure you just clean up the scraper on some sandpaper to make sure it's burr-free before we actually scrape the ski. So I can take this, plug it in. If I can find the plug. Oh, here we go. All right. Just turn it on. Just you want to move nice and slow. Don't zip it through really fast. And after you made the pass, I like to spin it around, get it two sides. And then when I'm done, I'll just take it on that sandpaper, clean it up a little bit so I know there's not a burr on there. It's going to be nice and sharp and clean. All right, so we want to scrape off the excess cooled wax from the ski base at this point. And you want to make sure that the wax is in the ski, not on top of the ski. So I use this as an example here. When you go to the beach, you put some sunscreen on, you rub it in thoroughly, right? You don't have it sitting on top of your skin. And when I think about this, if you have wax on top of your ski base, like you'd have sunscreen on top of your skin, if it blew, if it was windy at the beach or the dirt got on your lotion, it would get all dirty, right? So you want to make sure that you have that rubbed all the way into your skin so you're not going to pick up any dirt. The same idea is with the base materials, like your skin. You want that wax in the base material, not on top. So we're going to have to scrape off as much as we can, and then we're going to use the brushes to clean off the last little bit. So with scraping, we're always going to be starting in the tip, working to the tail. When I'm scraping, I like to hold the scraper with my fingers on each side, my thumbs on the back, and hold it at a slight angle here. Not pushing. You're going to just be like at a slight angle, and I'll work in sections. So I'll work in a 12-inch section, and I'll move on to the next 12-inch section, and I'll just scrape off as much as I can. So when you're waxing and you're doing all your scraping, there's going to be a lot of wax in the actual ski itself. And even after all this scraping and brushing that we're going to do, when your skis get cold, the base material is going to shrink and it's going to purge more wax up and out of the ski. So it's a good idea before your race, bring a scraper with you to the start, and you're going to make 1 or 2 passes with the scraper. You'll be really surprised how much more wax comes up off the ski. And then, of course, you're going to want to brush it at the start again. All right, just make a couple full-length passes here. And I can see I'm not really getting much more wax out of the ski itself. And then I'm just gonna, really gently, I'm just gonna clean up the base edge. I'll take that scraper. I'm not touching the base, I'm just going after the base edge to make sure that's wax-free too. All right. I already talked about cleaning the sidewalls, and now we're gonna get into brushing. So we put this together. This is kind of our alpine brush recommendations, kind of a progression. So we have category 1, which are going to be cleaning wax brushes. So white oval nylon or white rectangular. So we have oval brushes and we have hand brushes as well. So they're the same brushes. It's just the hand brush is going to be a little bit easier to travel with, and it's going to be a little bit less expensive. So just we have combinations in both of those. Category 2 is going to be pre-wax brushes. You have a couple of different choices here. Category 3 is going to be post-wax brushes. And then we have category 4, which is going to be finished brushes. So basically, the way that we're working with these is going to be aggressive to fine. So you're going to use a brush that's going to be a little bit more aggressive, that's going to do a lot of the work of taking the wax out of the ski. And then we're going to work to a softer polishing brush as we go. So just more details. We want to clean the wax out of those low-lying centered base structures. You can see there's a lot of depth here with this structure that's on the ski. So we want to get into those grooves and clean that area out and get that paraffin out of the ski, right? We don't want the paraffin on top of the ski, we want it in the ski. So that's our objective, is to clean those areas out. And you can do it a couple different ways. Like I said, you can do it by hand, or you can use a roto brush. These are great. We have them in all different combinations of brushes here. They'll save you a lot of time. They do an excellent job, especially with polishing. And then roto cover with suction. I really wanted to show this in detail here tonight, but I wasn't sure how good of a job we could pick up the debris when you're working with this. So it's really cool. We're gonna use a shop vac, so you can take a shop vac hose and hook it up to the end of this brush, and then it pulls right from the source. So while we're brushing with a roto brush, instead of the particulates coming up into the ski room, they're localized and pulled right down to the vac. So the vac's really good to use with a HEPA filter vacuum, so you're not spewing those particulates through the ski room. Really cool addition to the line this year. So I already talked about that. Okay, so this is kind of my go-to 3 brushes that I use a lot. I have a large oval steel brush. It's going to be my first brush. I'll move to a medium bronze brush, and then I'll finish with a nylon brush. It's a good method. Keep it simple. You got 3 different brushes that you can use there. I will mention that the brushes with metal in them, they do wear out. So probably every couple of years, depending on how often you're tuning, you're going to want to replace those metal brushes, because the bristles will lay over and they're not as effective as they normally would be. Okay, I just mentioned this. Just like with woodworking, if you're working with sandpaper, we're going to be going from the most aggressive to the finest. So I'll just start with that. I'll start with my first brush, which is going to be the large oval steel. And again, it's a metal brush. All of our brushes have arrows on them, so you know which direction to use it. You can see this one has an angle built into it. Always with the metal brushes, make sure you're using them in one direction. If you spin them around a lot, you could damage the base material. So we're going to start up in the tip here, and I'm going to work in 12-inch sections just like I did when I was scraping. I'll hold the brush nice and even, and I'll make 6 passes in the tip, and then I'll move to the next section. So I can see this brush is doing a nice job of getting into the structure and brushing up a lot of the wax that I couldn't get to with just the scraping. And then I'll just take my scraper and take the loose debris off the ski. And then I'll move into my medium bronze brush. And again, this is a metal brush. I'm definitely going to use it directional. Same progression, 6 passes. And as I go here, I can see the ski starting to look a little bit more polished, a little bit more refined. And then my third brush is going to be my polishing brush. So that's where I'll be using the nylon. Again, all of our brushes have that arrow, so it's a good reference. But I'm not afraid to scrub with this one. You can use it back and forth a little bit. Some people won't use a brush, but only one direction. I think it's okay with the nylon personally. But I'll start in the tip again. And now the ski is really starting to shine. I can see the structure standing proud. And after that last pass, I'll just take a little bit of fiberline. I'll run my scraper one more time. And I'll wipe it off with that little bit of fiberline here. Okay, now the ski's looking really nice. Basically race ready, but as I mentioned, when you go out in the hill, it's going to be cold. There's going to be extra wax that purges up out of the ski. So make sure you have in your kit a scraper for the start and a little blue nylon brush for the start's great. So you can scrape off that little bit of excess wax that's come up and brush it off with this soft nylon before you race. A new addition this year is going to be the roto wool. And this brush is becoming a bigger part of our system because it's working so well. So this is going to be a brush that's really used for a couple of different things. It's going to be for last application, like if I had applied 6 hardness, 5 hardness, or if I was working with the puller wax. After I've gone through my progression on my brushes, there's a little bit of wax that's still down in the details in the structure of the ski that we want to clean out. That hard paraffin is really difficult to get to. So that's where this roto fleece works great, because this is really soft. It's a natural fiber, but it does a really nice job of rolling and getting down deep into those areas where that little bit of wax is hiding. And so it cleans that out, and then it basically melts it, pulls it up and out, coats the structure. So we have a nice clean structure there. You know, we talked earlier about having paraffin and aggressive snow crystals. That crystal could dig into that paraffin and slow the ski down, but what we're doing is removing that, cleaning those areas. So we're thinking that this brush is going to be great for the last pass on those harder waxes, and then also we're using it for the marathon cold overlay. And that detail we're going to get into tomorrow with the liquid, the solid, and the powder application for race day. All right, so when the tuning is complete, don't forget to strap up your skis, a minimum of 3 straps. Clean up and properly dispose of any of the wax. Make sure it goes into the trash bag and goes to the local dump. And that's going to cover the waxing details for tonight. So as I mentioned, tomorrow we're going to get into a little bit more waxing detail with the powders, the liquids, and the paraffin there. And so tomorrow is going to be our next clinic. It's going to be the last one in the series of 4. This is going to be a little bit outside the box, different than what you normally do. So we're going to do tracking your equipment specifications. So we're going to go through the details of tracking with a spreadsheet, basically, the length of your ski, the model of your ski, the turn radius, the structure, the bevels, all the details. We're going to go through equipment inspection, kind of the checklist, the things that you need to do before the race, the night or 2 days before. Give yourself some time to replace some things if they don't check out on the checklist. As I mentioned, the top coat wax applications for powder, block, and liquid, and then adjusting your skis finally for the race conditions of the day. We talked a little bit about that on the second series, but it's really important, especially for race day. Going back to tracking your equipment, this is going to be really cool because it's one of the things I really enjoy doing with ski tuning, because I've talked to a lot of athletes about skis they like or don't like, and a lot of times they can't explain to me why they like something or why they don't like it. But when you dig into these details that we're going to talk about, we're going to paint a picture of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And it's going to help you as an athlete with equipment selection and making sure that you have the right equipment setup that's going to help you perform the best. So that should be fun. So that's it for this clinic. If anybody has any questions, Peter's watching the chat room there, and you can ask me some questions about what we went over tonight, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
If you're not the sharpest tool in the shed and can't quite do the air temp / snow crystal math, which should take priority?
Just look at that. Which should take priority if you're not sure, the air temp or the snow crystal? I would say just in general, look at the air temp. And go online. It's a lot of the websites now will have specific temperatures for ski areas. So you can go hourly and see what the temperatures are going to be. Let's say if the race is at 9 o'clock, I might look a little bit earlier. I might select the wax from 8 o'clock or 7:30. Just off the temperatures. So that's a good rule of thumb.
Should you be able to feel any warmth at all through the board when waxing, in particular snowboards?
Should you feel any warmth at all through the ski or board when you're waxing? I would say no. And if you're using the iron like I showed, you shouldn't be able to feel any heat coming through. If you're moving really slow and that wetness behind the iron is big, that's a pretty clear indication that that heat's dropping down through your board. And if you can feel it, you're moving too slow. How do you fix that? You buy a high quality iron. It will definitely help you out. Make sure that your board or your skis are flat and true. If they're flat and true, it's going to be a lot easier to get the wax into your skis or board.
Some liquid spray-on waxes cannot be transported on an aircraft due to flammability. Can the Swix spray-on waxes be transported?
The Swix spray-on waxes, can they be transported on a plane? The answer is no.
Any particular tips and tricks for those of us who tune in an unheated garage?
Tips or tricks to tuning in an unheated garage. I just talked to somebody about this in Mammoth yesterday, and there isn't any tricks. You want your skis or your board to be room temperature when you work on it, specifically for waxing. I mean, you can definitely tune your skis if they're cold, do the hand tuning. I think probably the best thing to do if you're tuning outside is maybe use the liquid waxes. How we're talking about using the liquid wax is you're going to iron with a paraffin like we did tonight. And then you can ski on your skis for 3. You can ski on them, get back to the ski room. You can use the liquid spray on. I can do this for you tonight really quick too. It's very simple to use. So for 2 or 3 days more on snow, you can continue to use the liquid. And then the 4th day, go back to the paraffin application. We want to make sure there's a little bit of paraffin in the ski, and you can support it with the liquid. But this it doesn't require that your ski's warm or room temperature to put it on. You can put it on when it's cold.
How many sets of skis do you expect to wax from one brick of wax?
So 180 gram bar of wax, you should get 15 to 20 pairs of skis out of this, depending on how much wax you're using. So if I'm using that roller waxer technique I mentioned, it saves a little bit of money with the application. I'll get over 20 pairs, but if I'm using it liberally, maybe 15 pair.
Where can one find the roller waxer applicator for purchase?
The roller waxer that we have from Swix is not in the country yet, but we're hoping that we'll see it this year, but it's a possibility it's going to be a product that will be available next year.
He's waxing tail to tip. Is that intentional?
I waxed from tip to tail when I did it. I don't think that there's any real issue from waxing tail to tip. When I put the wax on, I went from tail to tip and then tip to tail. But I did all my waxing passes from tip to tail.
What about applying cold wax with fiber roto?
What about applying cold wax with fiber roto? Yeah, you can definitely do that. It's very similar to the roto wool. It's an abrasive manner to apply the wax. So we'll get into this detail tomorrow. But if you're using a cork, a felt, any of the hand tools for applying wax, they're miniature irons. Those create heat, which creates durability. The more heat you create, the more durable the wax. That's the best way to do it, right? So if you're applying wax with a fleece or a hand cork, it's creating some heat and durability, and that will definitely do it.
What progression of roto brushes would you use instead of hand brushes?
What progression of roto brushes would I use instead of hand brushes? The roto brush comes in a steel barrel, so you can get it in a steel, and then I would use probably a natural fiber like a boar's hair, and then finish with a blue nylon. That's a really nice finishing brush. Just keep in mind, if you use any of the roto brushes, you're going to be using a cordless drill. And there's two settings. There's a setting 1, which is slow, and a setting 2, which is pretty fast. You can use the nylon brushes in setting 2, no problem. But if you're using any of the metal brushes, make sure the brush is setting 1, because you don't want to spin those too fast. You can damage the base.
Can you dive into the 3-strap comment?
Can I dive into the 3-strap comment? Yeah, sure. With race skis, usually slalom skis or GS skis, you put one strap at the tail, one strap right in front of the binding, one strap up in the tip, and then put the skis together and tie them up with ski ties. If it's a pair of speed skis, you might use 4 straps, so one in the tail, one behind the binding, in front of the binding, and the tip.
Where do the other brushes fit in the lineup?
The other brushes, we have that detail that I showed. Let me see if I can slide back here. It's a PDF that we have that we can share with everybody. We'll make sure this is posted somewhere so everybody can see this. This is a pretty cool PDF that kind of shows you the basics of using our brushes. So we have a lot of different brushes, and when you look at them individually, they're kind of confusing. They can be kind of confusing, but we just try to break it down in a manner that was easy to follow. So this is it, or we can post it somewhere.
Put it in the chat.
We can put it in the chat.
Can you talk about the amount of pressure you use with the steel and brass brushes? Also, how many cleaning passes do you normally do with the last white nylon brush?
Can I talk about the pressure that I'm using the metal brushes, and then?
Yeah, you can start with that.
Okay, how much pressure am I using? 8 nanometers of pressure. I'm just joking around. It's like moderate pressure. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not pushing down overly hard. I'm kind of letting the brush do its thing. But I'm using both of my hands, and I'm keeping the brush nice and flat. And I like to keep the brush, the full length of the brush on the ski. I notice a lot of people, when they're using these brushes, they turn them sideways. Just like the iron, when you turn it sideways, you're losing a lot of the power of this brush. So keep it nice and straight. And also the bristles, if you use it in that manner, they're going to hold up and stay true longer. So the brush will work better over time. And the second part of that question was?
How many cleaning passes do you normally do with the last white nylon brush?
How many cleaning passes do I do with the white nylon brush? So I'll go through the progression. I keep everything pretty similar. So I use this steel brush first. I'll do 6 passes per section. I'll do 6 passes per section as well with the nylon or the brass brush, and then with the nylon, I'll do the same thing. But I might keep going. Like if I want to make the bases stand really proud, nice polished look, I might keep going with this. You can't really overdo the brushing. So you can brush all day long. You're not going to hurt anything. You're probably going to help the structure break in. So don't be afraid to overdo the brushing.
What's your opinion of Pro Glide roller to apply wax without an iron?
What's my opinion of a roller to apply wax without an iron? I think they work great. Roller waxers are good. Obviously, if you use an iron after you roll it on, you're creating some more heat, so you're going to have more durability. The wax will last longer. But for sure, you could roll it on, let it cool down to room temperature, scrape and brush it, and you'll have a nice wax for sure.
How can you avoid destroying your edge sharpness with so much brushing, especially metal brushing?
How can you avoid damaging your edge sharpness with the brushing? So you make sure you're using your brush nice and flat on the ski. That's going to help keep the brushes off the edges. If you're getting into a brush where it's going to be touching the edges a little bit more, when you're done, you might find that you want to go back and do a quick touch up on the edges to make sure they're to the sharpness that you desire.
Does the CH wax have any fluoro in it? Can this still be used up as a training wax without risk of contaminating skis with fluoro?
Does the CH wax have fluoro in it? No. So the waxes from the Ceranova line that are fluoro-free are the BP 99, 88, 77. Those are fluoro-free. All the CH waxes are fluoro-free. And in that Ceranova system, those are the ones that you can use that are fluoro-free.
Can you use fiberline between the iron and the ski when melting wax onto the ski?
Can you use fiberline between the iron and the ski when you're waxing the ski? And I do know some people that will do this. So I'd rather spend the time making sure I flatten my iron and it's nice and clean and there's not a burr. But some people will use the fiberline like between the iron and the ski to keep any burrs from scratching the ski itself. You can definitely do that.
When using Swix liquid spray, the instructions suggest waiting 15 minutes after application before brushing. Is there any benefit or downside if it's left longer?
If you leave it longer, no, there's no. Let me back up. The question is there a downside to applying the liquid waxes and let them sit longer than what they suggest? I don't think so. I think that the wax is wax. It's on your ski. I don't think that it's going to damage it by being on there longer than 15 minutes. Should be fine.
Comparing F4 Universal Easy Glide Wax to the HS liquid sprays, which provides better results for the same day application?
Comparing F4 to HS in terms of glide. The F4 is a great product, but it's definitely on the recreational side. It's easy to use. It's one of our best-selling products for sure, and it's fluoro-free. So you could use it for racing if you wanted to. The HS liquid sprays are really specific for temperatures. As we saw here, we have 6, 7, 8, and 10 hardness. So I can be really specific with the temperature rating, so that's going to be faster in itself. But this product has been so successful for us. Like as I mentioned, this product has been beating HF in testing. So this is basically like the LF replacement and is outperforming the HF waxes. So there's no denying that this is a faster product for sure.
Durability of spray-on versus iron-on waxes?
Durability of spray-on versus iron-on waxes. So the iron-in waxes are definitely going to be a little bit more durable. They're going to offer more protection to the base material. That's why we suggest that you use a paraffin and the liquid sprays. But these actually are incredibly durable, and I've been really surprised how long these have lasted on the skis. I've had test skis where I've gone out and took 20 runs on them, and I got back to the ski room, and I could tell this was still on the base of the ski. So we get good penetration. When you apply it, it's wet, drops down into the ski. And as it dries, the accelerator goes away, and what's left is 100% wax. So that's down in the ski. So we get really good penetration and good performance out of this.
What's your opinion on paste waxes? For example, Dominator wax.
What's my opinion on paste waxes? Yeah, they're great. We have paste wax too. It's a good product. It's easy to use. You can keep it in your pocket. When you're feeling like your skis aren't performing that great, you can just pull this out and apply it. There's a buffer on here that you can put it on the ski. So it's very easy to use. And this product isn't necessarily a 100% race product, but there's some good products out there.
Do these same principles apply when waxing Nordic skis? Is there anything specific that differs?
Are these principles the same for Nordic skis with the glide waxing? And the answer is yes. The glide wax is glide wax. This is all the same product for Nordic skis as it is for downhill skis. The big difference between the two obviously is like Nordic skis have kick zones if it's classic, so that's obviously a big difference. But skate skis, the applications of the wax selections, the scraping, the brushing, the heat, everything I talked about applies to Nordic skis too.
Do you ever mix waxes together, or do you always scrape or wax, scrape, brush between different waxes?
Do I ever mix waxes together? I don't ever mix waxes together. I use our system. So I have success with the system. Swix has it as a team that I talked about on the Nordic side and the Alpine side that spends a lot of time testing these recipes and these formulas to come up with a system that's easy to follow and works. So a lot of people ask me like what I selected for wax for a race or whatever it might be, and I just follow the system. I'll keep notes. There might be specific conditions or places where I go for races and I know something different might work, but that's just something that you build as a technician as you go, and you have your little book, keep track of what works. But wax to the system, there's a lot of support behind that. You can use it with trust.
Up in Minnesota, where the temps are in the negative, I found these hard waxes really hard to scrape. Am I letting them sit too long, or is this a standard issue?
In the cold temperature ranges, the colder waxes are hard to scrape. It's true, they're harder for sure. I would say spend the money on that scraper sharpener that I showed earlier. It keeps the scraper nice and sharp, and that's going to really help you a lot to scrape the wax off your skis. Maybe get metal roto brush. The roto brush is really going to help you get the hard wax off the ski. Remember, you got to keep it in speed 1, and you can always finish with this with the new roto fleece too at the very end. Roto wool, sorry.
Blue roto brush for polishing?
Blue roto brush for polishing. I use that a lot. I mean, this is my, a lot of times this is my last pass after going through my progression. I might finish with this white nylon. This is a bit stiffer. I can feel it. This is a blue. The blues are usually a bit softer, And I really like how this polishes and finishes. And I just want to make sure when I use this brush that I keep it nice and flat on the ski. This is a brush where if you roll it over side to side and you're not holding it absolutely straight, it creates heat with the edge and you can actually melt these bristles a little bit. So it's really important that you keep it nice and flat, and it does an awesome job polishing.
Is the Wax Wizard coming back for Alpine?
Is the Wax Wizard coming back for Alpine? I hope so. I think so, right? Yeah, yeah.
Where does the horsehair brush go compared to the blue nylon?
Where's the horsehair go compared to the blue nylon? The blue nylon is going to be our softest in the progression. You know, this was the softest one we had available. But you know, a lot of it depends on the length of the bristle. If it's a longer bristle, it's going to be softer just from its length. But generally speaking, if you're not sure which one to use before the other one, just feel it. If your horsehair is really long, it might be a lot softer than this brush, and maybe that's your final brush. But just go by feel and make sure that you use the softest brush last.
On race day in New York, you are unable to wax, prep, scrape, or brush at the mountain for U10, 12, 14. In addition, you are not allowed to have slip skis. How would you recommend setting up a ski to race based on that you have to slip the course and cannot prep prior to the race run?
Okay, so you're U10 and you're racing in a situation where you can't have a race ski. You have to warm up, inspect, and race on the same pair of skis. And you're not allowed to tune. I guess you're a little limited. There's not a whole lot you can do. But I would say pick edges, and we'll talk about this tomorrow. I would make sure that I pick a ski, make it right or left. I always draw an arrow on there, so I know that's my inside edge for racing. And so when you're inspecting, make sure that you inspect on the opposite edges, so you're wearing down the edge that's going to be the outside edge when you race. So what you do is a couple different things. You're saving the outside edge for racing, so they're going to be nice and sharp for your race. But when you're inspecting and sliding around on that what's going to be the outside edge, it almost detunes the ski. So that ski is going to be less sharp on the outside. When you switch the edges for the race, you're going to have a nice sharp ski. That's a great way to do it. As for the wax, if they say you can't tune, I don't know really what that means. Does that mean I can't use my liquid spray wax before the race? This is pretty easy to put on. Maybe you can get away with this, but I don't know how hardcore they are about tuning. So I would say switch your edges for race run and then maybe support it with the race wax liquid.
How many days a year do you get to ski recreationally and not related to your job?
How many days a year do I get to ski recreationally? I never go skiing. I'm just always working.
That's a good answer. I know it's a question for next week, but is there a time when you should use TS over HS, for example, in low temps or humidity levels, or HS over TS?
First of all, it's a question for next week. Remember that tomorrow the clinic is not next week, it's tomorrow. We had like a little change in the format. So tomorrow is going to be the clinic at 7 p.m. to talk about race day procedures and applications. The other question was, when do I select TS over HS? That comes down to your budget. For me, the fastest choice is always going to be the TS, when every 1/10 of a second counts. The middle here is going to be probably the best performance to value ratio, and then we have the best on a budget for sure, PS. So I always think that TS is always going to be the best choice for speed.
What is your opinion of rubbing on wax instead of dripping on prior to ironing?
What is my opinion of rubbing on wax rather than dripping it on prior to ironing? You can do it. You got to be careful with the heat. So if I'm using a softer wax, so if I'm in the 7 8 or 10 category, it's going to be pretty easy to rub this wax on. So you can see when I apply this wax here, it's going on. And I'd want to rub a lot on there so when I hit it with my iron, there's some wax that can drop down into the ski. You're going to save a lot of money doing it like that, but you're not going to get the same performance as if you were ironing it in like I showed you. The problem with this technique is when I get to the harder waxes, 5, 6, or polar, they're really hard and it's difficult to rub it in. Like you can see how much easier the 7 went on as opposed to the 5. So when you get to the harder waxes, you're really going to have to use an iron.
Is there a problem with wax cleaner penetrating the ski base and contaminating it?
Is there a problem with wax cleaner penetrating the base and contaminating it? I don't think so. I mean, the reason why I use a wax cleaner is I want to clean any dirt that had been on the ski from the day before. And I like using that glide wax cleaner because it cleans the top palette. It's not overly aggressive. It's going to clean just a little layer of wax off the ski. And then I have wax still in the ski. So when I put my wax over the top of that, they bond to each other and they're going to be stronger and last longer. So I don't think there's a problem with it. And that's it. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for all the questions. They were great. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. we'll get into the race day procedures, and then it probably won't be as long. So if you have any questions at the end, we can just kind of freestyle a little bit and go from there. Thank you.